A year after my first deal that I closed, I was able to buy the brokerage that I worked for. I worked really hard, had a lot of, success early on. And then, from there, learned a whole bunch about this business and had a lot of, failures, a lot of opportunities to learn, a lot of successes.
Welcome to the Bulletproof Cashflow podcast. Let's get into the show.
Hey everyone, this is Agostino. In this business, you're going to hear a whole lot of no's. You're going to hear it from your friends, your family, even your spouse. Now, the thing is, adversity is part of life. It will happen. Now, while we can't always control the challenges we go up against, we can control how we respond to them. This is absolutely key to realizing your success. Now, today's guest understands this. He is passionate about helping people not only stay in real estate, but also thrive in it. Now, he is a certified practitioner in the art and science of humanistic, neuro-linguistic psychology, and neuro-linguistic programming. Now, he is also the head coach and visionary at the Greetings Virginia Sales Network and author of The Real Estate Evolution, the 10-step guide to CPI for real estate agents. Now, his work has been featured on the Nightly News with Brian Williams, the Today Show, the Washington Post, CNBC, and many, many other news outlets. Okay, now with all that, I'd like to welcome Dan Rochon on our show. Dan, buddy, thanks for coming on, man.
Agostino, you're welcome. Pleasure to be here.
Yes, I think it's going to be awesome. Now, guys, if you like what Dan has to say, you can reach him via his contact page at danrochon.com. Okay, Dan, go ahead and tell listeners a little bit more about how you got started in the world of real estate.
So, Agostino, I started in real estate sales in 2007. And before then, I was waiting tables at a high-end steakhouse in Washington, D.C., one of the most exclusive steakhouses in the world. And I hated my job. I remember I'd wake up every single morning and I'd go into the restaurant and, I'd work 12, 14, 16 hours a day after day after day. And I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to be a business owner. I didn't see the way how. I just there was no way that I saw okay, how do I actually do this? And so I remember one night we were sitting there doing some getting the butters ready for the evening shift, scooping them the ramekins. And my buddy Bill across the table there on Eagle Island, that's what we called the place that we would all sort of hang out and get ready for the shift. And Bill looked over and he said, "Hey, Dad, you ever think about real estate sales?" And I was like, no. And so anyways, we talked about it and I checked it out. I found out, okay, this is like $2,000 to get started and it's a 60-hour course. Hey, I'm in. And so that's how I got my real estate license. And then with the one thing I did not realize was this was back when they had this thing called the newspaper. Well, in the newspaper, that same week they got my real estate license, and the Wall Street Journal said worst real estate economics time of all times. And so that's what I didn't anticipate when I got my license. So I struggled for the first 6 months. And then after about 6 months of struggle, I finally closed my first deal, April 2008. A year after my first deal that I closed, I was able to buy the brokerage that I worked for. I worked really hard, had a lot of, success early on. And then, from there, learned a whole bunch about this business and had a lot of, failures, a lot of opportunities to learn, a lot of successes.
Excellent. I mean, I'm sure early on you heard a lot of no's, especially when you're first cutting your teeth on all this. I mean, that's probably one of the biggest issues, especially during 2008 when there's a whole lot of uncertainty. People were, I remember people were shutting down their businesses. Lenders were not lending. I mean, it was very, very tough time, similar to what happened in early 2020, right? Only for a much longer period of time. So now, what sort of things did you have to do early on anyway, before you became what you are today, before you created the Institute, before you're doing all these things that you're doing now? What sort of things did you have to do early on when you started hearing all those no's and you're trying to get things off the ground?
Well, I think it's understanding that really doesn't ever go away. There's a couple things that you could do to lessen the no's. One is you could improve your skill set. Secondly, you can be more selective of who you're making the request of. And then what I think really helps is to have the understanding that even with the very, very best skill, even with the very best odds of talking to a referral versus an expired listing or for sale by owner, for example, you're still going to get no after no after no after no. So it's about developing a relationship with those no's, is that it has zero to do with you, and it's just a part of the process. And so can I get 26 no's for every yes today versus when I started, maybe it was 50 no's to every yes? Sure. I've gotten better. Yet it's not about that. It's about being able to embrace a no as a part of the process and being comfortable to know that is, it's just the timing of it. Because that same person that might say no to you today, the next time you call he or she, when they have a need and they really need your services, they're 100% of a yes. So a lot of times it's just about timing.
Yeah. And it's interesting because so many people, what they'll do is they will internalize the no and they'll make it about, it's that guy. That guy is just being a jerk. He's saying no because he's not seeing it my way. Screw him. I don't want to do business with them anyway. But they don't realize something you mentioned specifically was to improve the internal skill set. That's what it comes down to, right? I mean, in your case, before you're able to buy the brokerage and launch the businesses that you've done now, it really took you really sharpening those internal skills and minimizing the amounts of no's as you win. Because every single transaction, so to speak, every single interaction was another opportunity to learn and test, right?
And it's learning and testing, and it's listening too. If you go back to the basics of communication, the basic of communication is to be in rapport, and then to ask adept questions, and then to actively listen. And so the definition of rapport is that you're in sync with somebody. It's almost like if you can imagine two dancers, and one dancer maybe perhaps they've never danced with each other before yet. One dancer, puts the right shoulder in, and as he does that, the lady perhaps takes her left shoulder and moves it out, and they're almost in unison and in sync, and they're not even touching each other, yet they have this energy between the two of them that they're so connected that they're able to literally dance. And when I was in the steakhouse, we would do that. I mean, we would be waiting on, some of the most prestigious people in the world, and we would wait on a lot of them. And there would be 20 or so waiters and waitresses moving really fast throughout the restaurant, yet we never ran into each other. And it was just because we were in sync and we were in unison with each other. So it's about having that connectivity, being a rapport. Then it's about asking adept questions and then actively listening. And so as you go through that experience, you'll end up finding that you'll hear no less and less. Because often it's the no, it has nothing to do with me when somebody says no to me. It's just, again, it's about the timing. Whether that be a real estate buyer or a seller, or when I did own the brokerage, and I sold that brokerage after owning it for 10 years. When I worked and I led real estate agents, my goodness, I would hear no often, time and time again. And it allowed for me to sit there and become a better listener, because really it was either about not the right timing or not the right solution, or maybe I didn't understand what the need was. And so if I didn't understand what the need was, then it's sort of an automatic no. It just depends on what level are you getting the no at, of understanding how you're going to respond.
Yep. No, and now fast forward to today, right? I mean, now you're helping. I know you're helping a lot of agents grow their business, and in the world of sales, which is primarily what they're doing, they're hitting that roadblock all the time, right? So now what sort of tools do you typically employ and really help them with overcoming some of those no's? Because I have to imagine, well, and I know from firsthand experience too, when we go and raise money for deals, sometimes people they want to hear no. I mean, for me, I just let it slide off. I've been doing this long enough. But for other people, for people especially starting off, it can be tough to hear those no's all the time. How do you help those folks overcome that?
Before you get to making the request, the very first thing that I would do when I'm working with somebody that I'm coaching is to find what is their God-given talent. Because sometimes, for example, I'm not going to push you into going out and call expired listings if that makes you gives you a great deal of anxiety. If it makes you want to just you'd rather spit around and puke on the floor rather than pick up the phone and call an expired, then guess what? Don't. Okay. Instead, find what your strength zone is. Find where you're most comfortable making the request. Here's what you don't have a choice of. You don't have a choice of not making the request. What you do have a choice of is who you make the request of and how you make the request. That's where you have the opportunity to be able to improve your skill and improve your craft. So when you can start and say, let's first put you into your strength zone, now you're going to limit the amount of no's that you're going to get in of itself. Now it's about a personal development thing. So there's a tactical thing of positioning yourself, and then there's a personal development. And the personal development is really about just understanding that your job is, for example, if you're a real estate agent, for example, your job is you're in the lead generation business, specializing in real estate sales. If you're in the investment business, you're in the you're in the lead generating business, specializing in investing. Whatever business that you are, if you're in I'm going to be the yellow pad, company, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make yellow pads. I just picked a piece of yellow pad up for my desk here. Then you're still in the lead generation business, specializing in yellow pads. And if you can understand that, you can understand that the basic 101 of business, then you start having a relationship with the activity that you do, and you start having a relationship with the results that you create, so that you just know you're just doing your job. The same way as you've worked at McDonald's and you're sitting there flipping burgers. Well, if you flip a burger and something doesn't work the way it's supposed to do, your feelings aren't going to get hurt. Or maybe you put the burgers in the trays and then they're in there too long and you have to throw them away. You're probably not going to cry over that.
I would hope. Yeah.
I would guess. If you do, then there's another program for you. And I'm not a part of that program, right? But it's the same thing. It's just, this is your job. This is what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're in the lead generation.
And that's the thing. It's, especially for those folks that are just starting out, it can be somewhat overwhelming when you're first starting, and we're all terrible when we're first starting. Everyone was terrible. I was terrible when I was first starting. I never thought in a million years that I'd actually be doing sales as a thing, but it's what I do. I mean, I actually do a lot of sales in terms of selling and pitching our deals to investors, or selling and pitching myself to brokers, or whatever the case may be. And I think that the hardest thing sometimes is when you establish relationships is hearing those no's and trying to overcome it. I mean, what I personally do is I try to I read a lot of biographies, listen to a lot of biographies, and hear some major things that other people have overcome to think that, okay, well, if they can do it, if they can overcome this major thing in their life, I can certainly overcome this issue today. And just like I think what you said too, and I got to harp on it, it takes practice and knowing your craft, over and over and over and over again, right? Because everyone is terrible. When they're first starting off in this business, everyone is terrible, no matter what.
Let me tell you, so I had a conversation earlier today with a group of investors. And one of the investors was talking about the deal that he did, and he bought it from a wholesaler. And he bought this conversation I had 2 hours ago. And he bought this from a wholesaler, and he was sort of saying, he's like, man, this wholesaler, they really this is what he said, they chapped my ass because they made 65 grand off of this and they're not risking anything. Well, he didn't realize there was a group of about 10 of us that I was actually competing against the wholesaler for that deal. Okay. So when you sit there saying like chapping the ass, right? It's like, oh my goodness, like I could have had that before the $65,000 bump, before the renovation, okay? And so I'm sharing that with you, Agostino, because you have to understand that was just another no, okay? That was just another swing at the bat. And I was sitting there talking to my coach afterwards, and I said to my coach, I said, listen, I said, Jay, I said, I don't feel bad about this. I don't feel bad at all because I took the shot. So as long as I'm taking the shot, then I can emotionally feel good, whether I win or did not win. And I learned something through the process. I learned the guy that won it, the way he won it was because he had offered to pay all the moving costs, and he had offered to put them into a hotel for 1 month, which was such a no-brainer of that's all that they ended up wanting. And then he was able to get, to be able to get a better deal on it. So I share that again with you so that you can understand if you're not comfortable with no's or you get a no, it's like, okay, what do you do about it? Well, I hate to say this, but I don't hate to say this, but you just you make more requests, because every time you get shot down, and everybody gets shot down, Nobody's gonna be able to hit a home run every single time you go up to bat. You just have to get back up, and you have to go, and you have to say, what did I learn? I learned a great negotiating technique in buying an investment deal. I learned to sit there and say, okay, I didn't ask the right questions to really find out what was important to them. What was important to them is they didn't want to have the hassle of moving, and they didn't want to be homeless.
Yeah.
That allowed for my competitor to actually get the property at less of a price than what I was offering them. Even though they could have taken the money I was giving them and, bought them that for themselves, right? So it's just, dust yourself off, see what you learn, and go out and swing again. And as long as you keep doing that,
the key thing is not to give up, right? Because I think that's what many people happen. To your point, people will hear a bunch of no's and figure, oh, I suck at this, I'm not doing this anymore, and then they just quit. And it's like anything else, especially if you're a corporate guy or girl and you're out there working in corporate and you suddenly want to get into the real estate business. There's so many of those people right now. I actually I was looking at but messages on our YouTube channel earlier, just before we jumped on this show, and there's people that want to get into this business so bad. They're working in corporate, they want to get out, and it's like, I wish it were that easy. You can just flip a switch and you're in. It takes time to develop the craft, because while you're doing whatever it is you're doing, you're developing your current craft. There's other people right now that are very, very good in the world of real estate. You have to compete against those people, right? That's what you're competing against. So the only offset is to build up your skills. Build up your skills. That's it. That's all you can do.
Yeah. If you've never sold before, you may be curious. When you go and you get your real estate license, they literally call the class a salesperson's class. They call it a salesperson's license. So if you are considering to get your real estate license and you're listening to this right now, the one question I would ask you is, have you sold before? And have you truly sold? Like, have you had to go out and have you had to make a living based off of the results that you've created? Because if the answer to that question is no, I'm not suggesting that it is not the right business for you, but I'm suggesting that you have a clarity on understanding what the job is. And the job is to find people that you can help by exceeding their expectations, and to do so in a manner that you're able to persuade them to do what's in their best interest, and that you're able to do so in a manner that they oftentimes think it was their idea. I helped a for sale by owner about 2 weeks ago. This guy had placed his property on the market for $665,000 on a for sale by owner. I convinced him to take it off the market on his own and invest $65,000 into improvements. He did that. Last week, this was probably about 6 weeks ago. Last week, we had that same property under contract for $862,000.
Wow. Crazy.
Now, it took a lot of skill to be able to persuade him to do what I was suggesting, and experience to say it with confidence that it's like, look, here's what's going on in the marketplace right now. You could do this, and at the end of the day, and he paid my commission, he was about $90,000 ahead. Okay, so it's understanding that as a salesperson, if you think about that, it's about persuading another person to do what they may not want to do that's in their best interest, because they don't have the experience. And if you're a new agent, well, you're not going to have the experience either, yet you can still align yourself with somebody that does have the experience, right? You can still work with a mentor, with a partner.
That's exactly it. I was just going to ask you that, is that mentoring is probably one of the things that I was unlucky enough, or I just wasn't even in that frame of mind years ago when I started in the real estate business many years ago. And I kind of went down the hard road, and I learned it all on my own at first before taking on some virtual mentors. But if I could do it all over again, I would sign on for some real, genuine in-person mentors. It's like where you can actually ask questions and pose questions and get responses and really help get you to the next level. Because that's one thing that is often overlooked is I think for many folks, they think that they just go to school, they go to university, they learn all they need to know. They're out in the real world. You're done. Right. That's an antiquated way of
Yeah.
learning. I think mentoring has been, even before school, school in general, and making the air quotes here, that we all know and are familiar with. Prior to that, it was all mentors. That's how things were done, through mentors. It's
I pay at any given time between 3 and 5 or 6 coaches, and that's not including the mentors that I have. And so it's dependent upon different areas of my life. I find specialists. So, for example, I've got a sales coach. I still get coached in sales day in and day out. Well, not day in, day out, but weekly. And then I practice a day in and day out. I still get coached in marketing. I get coached in online. You mentioned YouTube. I'm getting coached right now on how to take my YouTube, the consistent and predictable income community channel on YouTube. I'm getting coached right now on how to make that the most useful channel for the real estate agent consumer, so that they can learn and be able to, learn all the tricks and hacks. And I, at any given time, have at least three people that I'm paying in my world, because it's an investment that pays dividends. It's an investment that I would not do it if I wasn't earning a return on it. And then from doing that, and I have an expectation of earning a return on it. It's one of the few relationships that I have in my life that I approach it in a manner of, hey, how are you going to help me? Because in my DNA, there's a common question I'm always asking others is, how can I help you? And so that's the way that I'm positioned. It's just, I'm naturally interested in, what can I do to help you? And this allows me to have those mentorship relationships and the coaching relationships where I'm the coachee or the trainee. It allows for me to sit there and have a relationship where I don't have to worry about how I can help you. I'm paying you to help me. And that is the professional business relationship that we have. And it's been one of the best investments I've ever made in my life.
It's also worth emphasizing again that here you are, you've written books on this material, on sales. You have channels dedicated to it. You have material dedicated to it. And you still bring on coaches, and you still pay them thousands of dollars. And
I pay them more today than what I ever did before.
That's the thing. You're making it all back. You make it all back. That's the key. And I think many people, they underestimate that. They think, oh my God, 15 grand for a coach. Oh my God, that's just too much money. I'm just going to go keep doing what I'm doing. It's like, if the pros still hire the coaches, clearly you don't want to miss out on that. You want to bring on some outside help. You want to bring on that outside help to help you get over whatever is blocking you. That's the thing. Sometimes you don't even know it because you're already inside it. You're in that bubble. You can't see what's on the other side.
Well, it's the blind spots. I was talking to my coach earlier. We're hiring a position today for my real estate sales teams for one of my businesses, and we're hiring a leadership position for it. And I was talking to my coach earlier today, where I'm actually getting a new coach. So we're talking about who that new coach is going to look like. And he said to me, he says, well, when I'm talking to my company, they're going to ask, does Dan need to go faster or does he need to go slower? And that's one of the questions they're going to ask me. I said, well, how would you answer that? He says, I think you need to go faster. Now you have to understand, I go at the speed of a speed demon. And I said, okay, well, help me understand that better. He says, well, 2 weeks ago, you said to me that you're hiring for this leadership position within your company. And you don't have any candidates, not any legitimate candidates today, 2 weeks. Now I have people I've talked to. I've had many, I've taken action, yet I don't have any candidates in front of me. That one conversation that I had earlier today, I promise you, because he knows how to sort of encourage me. Okay. He knows how to coach me. Within a week from now, I'm going to have at least a half dozen candidates.
It's holding you accountable.
Okay. Because somebody challenges me, I'm all in, and he knew what to do. And that's what I need. Okay. So it's having the right people in your life to be able to
part of it is
they're
holding you accountable too, right? There's that. It's like if you're saying, hey, you said that you're going to have this thing done and it's not done. What's up with that? Now to your point, you feel like, man, I better get on this because I don't want to look like an idiot next week when I go talk to him. Right.
Yeah, man. I approach the conversation. I'm like, hey coach, I took 3 listings this past weekend. Right? I'm feeling pretty psyched about it. He's like, okay, great. Now tell me about that director of sales. Man.
And you know what though, and that's
Okay.
kind of like that's how the world is, right? It's like, oh, good, that's great work that you did that. How'd you do on the goal? Oh, you missed the goal. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you missed the goal, right? That's the kicker, and it's funny how that works. But I think that's why mentoring and coaching is absolutely critical to really building up your business too. It's sure, you can do it on your own. Sure, you can build the right mindset, but without having the right people around you, it becomes extremely difficult to build success. It just does.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's been one of the biggest things, not only just if you go back into, I mentioned earlier about like being the best version of yourself possible. There's a thing called a self-coaching model. And in a self-coaching model, they teach you, this is a psychological model. They teach you that the programming leads to your thoughts, which leads to your feelings, which leads to your actions, which causes the results. And then when you have the results, that goes back into your programming. And so I share that with you because that's a closed loop. And so if you can imagine what I just said to you, programming would be at the top at like a 12 o'clock if you wrote this on a piece of paper, and then around a 2 o'clock would be thoughts, around 5 o'clock would be feelings, around 7 o'clock would be actions, and around 9 or 10 o'clock would be results. And then you would put an arrow in between each one of those and go in a clockwise position. That's a closed loop. And that's the way that we perform through our lives. And that's why we typically end up getting the same results over and over and over and over again. Well, the hack to be able to, how do you break into that closed loop to be able to get different results, starts with the programming. And who you surround yourself with is one of the things that you can change your programming. Because if you surround yourself with people that are all 75 pounds overweight, I bet you could take a look at yourself in the mirror today, and I bet that you probably look similar, that you might be a little bit overweight as well. No judgment on that. It's just reality. And I bet if you surround yourself with people who are physically fit, then you look into yourself in the mirror and you're more likely to also be physically fit. So that's where you change your world, is based in the programming. And one of the things that you could change in your programming is who you surround yourself with. Also, who do you get mentored by? Who do you get coached by? Do you do affirmations, meditations? What are you reading? What are you listening to? If you're listening to me right now, I can already tell you that you are intentional at designing your life, and you have better results in your life right now. Not because I have anything of wisdom to share, but because of you taking the time to listen, to say, well, maybe this guy has something that he can share with me that's going to help me in my life. Or maybe Agostino has something he can share with me that's going to help me in my life. And the mere fact that you're doing that right now demonstrates that you're more likely to have success out of life and in business than if you were not taking the time right now to better yourself.
Yeah. And that's exactly it too. It's, I'll tell you what, before I'd say like a couple of years ago, I would go to the gym and I had this closed loop thing going on too. But what I was doing is I was listening to impact quotes, right, every morning. And that was the foundation for the entire day. And it was all around positive thinking, positive reinforcement, go to work out with a bunch of thin, strong people, go home, write out your affirmations. And then by 7:30 in the morning, you're already attacking the day, right? You're already ahead of everybody else. Because you're up at 5, right? And the foundation for all that, just in that morning segment, was all based around positive affirmation, around thinking that you can take on the world, right? But I think that the thing that many people forget is that we never take on the world by ourselves. You have to have other people around you, and that these other people need to be at the top of their game as well. That's why I try to surround myself with today. Anyway, it's very, very important to building up where you want to be. You absolutely have to. But I think the key thing they have to do, and Dan, you mentioned this earlier, is you have to be able to provide value to someone else. And I think that's probably one of the biggest downfalls many people have, is they walk into a conversation and they turn it all on themselves. What can this person do for me? As opposed to how can you help them first? If you're always in that mode of service, that always comes back to you tenfold. That's just what I think anyway. Yeah.
Even if you're selfish, if you can understand the law of reciprocity, even if you truly say, I want to get mine first, the law of reciprocity states that when you help somebody else, they're going to be inclined to help you back. Now, that's not why I help other people. I help other people because, again, it's in my DNA. It's just naturally of who I am and what I do. I can't imagine going through life and not helping other people. Now, as an unintended benefit, a lot of beautiful things happen in my life. A lot of people in my life are willing to help me. I'll give you an example. You will know if you are in the real estate sales business, for example, and you make it a habit to call your sphere of influence to touch base with them so that you stay top of mind, so that you can be able to that they understand that you're the resource for their real estate needs. You could test this out, because what you could do is you could give 5 people a call today, and if those 5 people, if they're not bending over backwards to help you when you make that request, it demonstrates that you're not helping them enough. When I make that phone call, so in my sales business, my real estate sales business, I systematically communicate value and contribution to my world. And I do so in a manner that is systematic, so that once a quarter I give them a call and I invite them to a client appreciation event. And when I make that phone call, that's the only time, 4 times a year, that I make a request from them. Almost 100% of the phone calls that I make, I get a referral. Now, the referrals are not always the best referrals, because they're bending over backwards to think, yeah, you know what? My cousin Sally's best friend, Sue, said that she may buy a home 10 years from now, but she has no credit and she doesn't have a job. Is that a good referral for you, Dan? No, and I appreciate it.
That's right.
Right? Because, so I get a lot of referrals like that, and that's okay. I'm grateful for that, because I also get a lot of referrals of people that are really, truly in the need of my services today. And it's a direct test of, are you providing enough value and contribution to those in your world? Because if you are, they are going to go through the ends of the earth to be able to help you back when you ask them seldomly.
100%.
Okay. And so I make it a habit about giving about a 12-to-1 ratio. So I will help you around 12 times, and then I will, again, systematically make a request once. And by the way, when I'm making that request, guess what? I'm inviting you to a party. I'm inviting you to a barbecue, because it's a client appreciation event. So it's not even as though if I'm just calling just to make the request. Hey, who do you know that's in the market to buy a home or sell a home or invest in real estate that you give a call to today? Anybody in your family, or anybody that you work with, or perhaps somebody you go to church with? Who comes to mind? Well, when you ask that question after inviting them to a barbecue, it becomes a really natural, easy conversation to have.
And you know what, though? It doesn't even need to be all that often, too. Even if you reach out to them once every couple of weeks, even if it's a text message or an email, that's even better than nothing at all, right? And I think many people can get better at this, myself included. Just to reach out, touch them, get to know them a little bit, find out what's going on in their world, do something for them, back off. I think that's a great approach. Great approach.
Yeah, but you have to do it with a system. We touch our people probably it's well more than 100 times a year, and of those 100 times a year, there's only 4 requests. Now, throughout the year, I get unsolicited, hey, my sister's looking to buy a home. Can you help her? I got one this morning. A guy in New York sent me a text with a Zillow thing and says, hey, I want to check out this property in DC. And he wants to buy a second property in DC because this is where his family's from. And he's like, I've got about $80,000 in the bank, tremendous amount of money. I'm really proud of him for that. And he says, and I think it would be better if I put it in a real estate rather than keep it in the bank. What do you think, Dan? And I wholeheartedly think that that's a good idea. And, but before I answer the question, I asked him, I said, well, what are your goals? I said, because for me to sit there and answer the question based off of what's important to me, that would be irresponsible in my opinion. So when I found out that his goals are, he says, Dan, I've got plenty of money coming in. I don't really need the cash. I just, he's probably around 35 years old. He's like, I just want to make sure that I'm set up so that in the future, I'm good to go. I said, well, how far in the future are you talking about? He's like, I don't know, 15, 20 years from now. I'm like, okay. If it's 15 or 20 years from now and you bought 2 or 3 properties right now and you're willing to sit there and hang on to them and not get emotional if the market crashes, then in 15 to 20 years from now, it is almost 100% bet that you're going to end up creating wealth because you can leverage the money into it. And there are no 100%. I said almost 100%. And this is exactly what I said to him earlier today. And understanding where we are in the marketplace right now and understanding what his timeline is, then I could give him good advice. But that was a text that came in unsolicited from somebody that, I'm sending him a video email marketing once a week. I'm sending him a postcard, mailed to his home once a quarter. That I'm systematically communicating something of fun and
that's
value.
absolutely key. I mean, I was reading something about touching base with people, communicating with people. Some people will sit down every morning and write out 5 letters, handwritten letters, just to 5 people that's in their network, just to thank them for something, to show gratitude. That's another way to reach out. I mean, obviously your method is far better. Setting up a video and being more personal in that way is one way to do it. But there's many ways to skin this cat, is to maintain.
Well, the video is actually not personalized. The video is sent out to thousands of people, thousands of my friends. So but it's a value about that hopefully is something it's a video that hopefully is providing a value. Everything comes from a place of how can I provide value and contribution. If it's going to be writing a hand note, does that work? Yes. Whatever you do works as long as
that's right. Action.
You do it.
Got to take action.
And as long as you don't stop the action. Okay, because if you're talking about a lead generation strategy of handwriting notes 5 cards a day, that action through time will generate you an enormous amount of business. If it's 25 note cards a week. Okay, if you think about that 18 months from now, if you do that every single day for 18 months, I promise you will have a business that will withstand time. That a business that will not be commoditized, a business that artificial intelligence, big data, and technology cannot compete against. Because guess what those companies cannot compete against? They can't compete against the fact of, hey, Dan, I got $80,000 in the bank. I think I should invest it in real estate. Is that a good idea? And know that they're going to get an honest, educated, experienced answer. They can't get that from a website. They can't get that from technology. And so 18 months from now, if you want to sit there and say, I want to build a moat around my business, write 5 cards a day. But don't miss a day, any day. That's your job. And don't give up on it because you won't get business on it tomorrow. You won't get business on it next week. You may, but you can't count on it. But you can count on the fact that 18 months from now, it's going to be solid.
That's excellent advice, right there. It's, I think the diligence, it's just the diligence. That's what it comes down to, employing it every single day. Now, Dan, if you had a piece of bulletproof advice for someone listening, what would you tell them?
It starts with who you're going to choose to be. Believe in yourself. Believe that you can do whatever it is that you set your mind to. And then as you believe in yourself, design who you're going to be. Design if you're going to be charismatic. Design if you're going to be attractive. If you're going to attract people to you. If you're going to be knowledgeable. If you're going to be whatever the best version of you is. Be intentional about being that very best version of yourself. And as you're the very best version of yourself, then you can be able to achieve the very best results. You're able to take the very best action, and you can have the success that you desire. You could be significant. People could depend on you. It starts with who you're going to choose to
Excellent.
be. I'd love to invite you to visit my website. You mentioned it earlier, danrochon.com, and I've got some tools on there that will help you to be the very best version of yourself that I invite you to check out. And thank you for letting me be a guest on your show today.
All right, guys. Well, if you want to reach out to Dan, reach him via his website at danrochon.com. Hope you got some really good insight on how you could really build up your own personal grit and find success. And definitely check out Dan's website as well. He's got a lot of great material on there. I looked at it this weekend. He's got great stuff. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Hey, Agostino here, and I would love to connect directly with you. Text the word books to 202-410-4202 to receive weekly book recommendations from me.